we're not going against one another. Together we're a team. The problem we'll fix. Regardless of whether it came as my problem or your problem, we will solve it together.
Hi, my name is Aggie, and this is Biohacking Bestie. The one-stop shop for a modern queen, where you can find biohacking courses, self-growth courses, and where you can find the most incredible community of women so you can hit all of your biohacking goals and beyond. Welcome, biohackers, in another episode of Biohacking Bestie. And even though I was lucky enough to host the greatest thinkers on this planet, somehow my episode with you, my darling fiance, ended up getting the most views of all times.
Fiance slash bio slacker.
Bio slacker.
That's the coined term for me, apparently.
That's it. So
most viewed.
Yeah. So, people are saying they want to see more of you, and I love when you come over and we get to chat. And maybe we can reflect back on what happened since our last conversation. So we recorded our previous conversation in Bali about 3 or 4 months ago.
It was in May.
Yeah, and the big plot twist was that we decided to go back together after 5 months of being broken up.
And fast forward to last week, we are now engaged.
We're now engaged.
Congratulations.
To you too. So how did we get here?
How did we get here?
What happened since last time we chatted? I feel like this interview was so interesting. Peanut.
This move, Mike.
What was super interesting, we recorded that interview because there was this deep need to communicate, like, why did we break up in the first place? Because it felt like it was...
even just between you and I, to be able to share it, right? Not necessarily for other people to see, but it was also important from a sense of honesty and vulnerability for us to share with other people, but for you and I to really understand what did that look like.
Yeah, I think neither of us ever feel like... Basically, when we broke up, I had to ask myself, am I sharing what happened out of the pure need of self-expression and feeling like I want to be the most authentic version of myself on social media? Or I feel like there's a need to explain myself in front of my audience. And I didn't want to have a conversation with you from that place, that unhealthy place of having to explain myself. I wanted to grow to the moment where I basically feel like, oh, it feels good to share. Perhaps it resonates with people. Maybe it doesn't. We posted that interview.
Yeah.
It did not resonate with
a lot of
700,000 people. Some of the 700,000 people that watched the 1 minute excerpt, one of the
cuts from it.
Yeah, one of the cuts from it. We woke up in the morning next day and Jacob's like, I told you we shouldn't have posted.
Well, I think actually reflecting back, there's a beautiful bit of work and lesson for me in letting go of the judgment surrounded by that, or the judgment I felt toward myself surrounding that, because we woke up in the morning after this one excerpt from the full conversation, which without the context of the rest of the video, I don't think necessarily really showed much or really explained the full thing unless you actually watched it. So waking up and seeing all these people kind of like hating on us, my immediate gut reaction was like, knee-jerk reaction, was like, we shouldn't have done it. This is bad. Like, blah, blah. And like...
It's better to keep everything private.
Yeah, better to see we shouldn't have done it. But like, a few hours after that, it took me some time. But in the same day, I was kind of like, actually, okay, this is good. Enjoy, take it for what it is. Like, accept kind of what's gone out and the response from people and find comfort in that discomfort. Mm-hmm. But that was even just that in itself was like a moment for me of like, oh, here's an opportunity to grow and be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah, and there was this, my view was like, okay, sometimes when you want to express yourself, you're going to get misunderstood, and that's also okay. And it's not easy because I feel like this need to be understood is really present for me, and I would spend a lot of my energy trying for people to get me, and whenever I have a conflict with somebody or they take what I meant as the opposite, how much it bothers me.
Yeah.
And being okay with being misunderstood is really tough, but also really necessary for my ego, and kind of understanding that it's how people see me, how you see me right now, has nothing to do with me. right?
Yeah.
What you see.
Your perception of someone else is purely your perception. It has nothing to do with that person.
Yeah.
Like,
And it's reality is perceived,
and vice versa. Though, it's like what you think people think of you is what your reality is.
Yeah.
But is 99% of the time inaccurate.
Yeah. I think G. says that you're not who you are. You're not you're not what people think you are. You are who you think people think you are.
Yeah.
And
That's
it's so
your
funny.
view of yourself.
Yeah, that what you think other people think of you, which is always skewed. And I think it's really important to understand that it's like, it's impossible to ever share a full picture, even though we tried, and there is this need for self-expressing. So whatever we see in others, it's a reflection of us, right? Like a lot of times when you like talk to different people and they're like, oh, aren't you worried that people are going to take advantage of you or this and that? I'm like, wow, it doesn't even cross my mind. Like my mind doesn't think that way. And so it's really interesting to just remember that whatever we think of others and what we see in others is an invitation for us to heal.
It is. I think so. Yeah, we filmed this podcast episode. I think we were kind of midway. Did we have puppies at that point?
Yeah, that was towards the end.
We had puppies, 5 puppies, which are still doing well, for those of you curious. We get to see them very soon.
We actually just paid for their ball snipping
and some other surgeries. But we get to see them soon. But we had this. We're out in Bali. We were enjoying this time together as 2 single people, and for me at least, of course, there was a want, spending that time with you, connecting with you in that way, having this kind of weird little family that we kind of adopted, was an invitation for me to kind of see that, I still so much want to see this work. But one of the things that I think there were things that throughout our relationship, I know that I had kind of like held on to out of fear of judgment or fear of like whatever outcome that was that I told myself it could potentially be, and didn't share those things with you. So at a point throughout that time in Bali, I got very honest with myself and shared in a letter to you some very vulnerable things.
And the funny is, just to give you guys a little bit of context, is this was, we're broken up. We're kind of acting like we're broken up, like separate bedrooms, And then Jacob it was a morning in Bali, and he wanted to show me something on his phone. And this was like constantly, every time I was on your Instagram, there was this one girl, and like super hot, and I don't know who she was, but she was always the green like circle on Instagram that you're in like her close friends. I'm like, close friend? I don't even know that girl. Like, what the hell? And I'm thinking, okay, he's single. He's allowed to, he's moved on. You can have some new friends. And then basically, but I couldn't get myself out of the mood. I'm like, oh, like it bothers me. Why does it still bother me that you have this, always this girl coming up in your, on your Instagram? And I think you saw that something bothered me that day. Maybe you didn't. And basically he's like, I need to tell you something. And I wrote a letter. So my heart basically stopped. I was like, oh no, he has 3 babies with this girl since then. Like, since we maybe had him before. So I created this whole story about this girl that you're now with and have babies. And she's definitely pregnant with another one. And then, he's like, I'll leave the letter for you in a few hours. So the whole few hours, I was like, that's it. It might be okay with you just moving on. And then obviously you said something completely different, which was something that we get to keep for ourselves for now. But it was really, first of all, I felt so relieved that you don't have babies with another woman.
Beautiful story you told yourself.
Yeah.
No, I think, just to back to what I was saying, I think what I realized, for me at least, was this kind of moment of ultimatum with myself where it was like, well, look, like, this woman's my best friend, regardless of whether we're together or not.
Okay, me, not that woman there.
This is your own woman. This woman that I'm talking to is my best friend, and, has been my lover at this point, not, regardless of that step forward in whichever form it comes. Like, I know I'll have a weight off my shoulders by sharing what I did, And either it brings us really close or it's closure for me in that I needed for this. And I think that was really, really kind of a tipping point for me, especially with how we were in Bali, to be able to then share that and talk to you. And obviously then following those conversations, actually how close it brought us. And
what was, because your initial reaction was that I basically will never speak to you again.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know what the outcome would be, but my kind of was like, I was comfortable with either scenario at that point. Obviously, I couldn't have hoped that we would be sat in this position now, engaged. That's, that was like, wild potential path, which we got to with like all the boxes being ticked in every point. But like, yeah, it was kind of a, well, I don't know which way this goes, but I know I need to share with you because I can't personally move forward without truly being vulnerable. And I think one of the things that held us back throughout that stage of our relationship was that lack of vulnerability from me, which I think then in turn builds a lack of vulnerability within you because you don't feel like you can be vulnerable because you kind of probably know that I'm not being.
Yeah, and it's like a big secret that, I had no idea about. And, there's like a cliche statement, you never know what someone goes through. But to never know what your partner goes through was really just like shocking. And I was like, oh my God, how did I have no idea after all these years. And what would you say was, how did you receive my reaction? Or what did you feel in that moment? You left a letter and
I mean, I think
went to the beach to swim.
I think, instantly, obviously, like with us talking afterwards when you came over, like a beautiful amount of empathy, which I think, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know what I was expecting, but that was a great outcome in my head. I was like, oh, that's nice. But like for us to be able to sit and talk, and empathy and curiosity and interest and a level of comfort and safety in how we communicated about it was beautiful. And I think that for both of us, I think it really unlocked something.
Yeah, I think there's only, again, another super cliche thing. You can only love someone as much as you love yourself. And I think you didn't really love yourself. You said like, yeah, I don't mind myself. I think I'm okay. But I think that deep, you didn't really celebrate it exactly for who you are and your story and your past. You were in constant judgment of the perfect Jacob that has to get everything right, and you weren't getting it, and you didn't really like allow that love to pierce through.
Yeah,
and
it affects every aspect of everything, right?
Yeah, and it was really hard. I always said it's really hard to be with someone who's so hard on themselves. Yeah. That was my thing that I would always tell.
Or you would say, who gives the impression that doesn't have anything quote unquote wrong with them.
Oh yeah, because that was like another thing. I was like, I'm exploring this and doing ayahuasca to get to the bottom of that feeling of unworthiness and this. And you were like, I don't have any issues, but if you want to work on yours, that's great. And I was like, wait, people don't have issues. So I felt even more
alone.
Alone, because you kind of felt like, I don't have any insecurities. Yeah. So that was really cool. And then fast forward to like seeing you, that was like the most beautiful moment without getting into too much detail, but seeing you so vulnerable, so courageous, choosing your growth, choosing the harder thing to do was like, I remember sitting on the beach in Bali and I like literally just fell in love with you again, which is as crazy as it sounds. And this was this like, how can a situation like this completely change your relationship? And when I just still don't understand, because I remember thinking a miracle would have to happen for us to get back together. Yeah. Like, oh, puppies are cute, he would get back together. I'm like, yeah, they're cute, but he still has the same issues. Yeah.
Puppies are cute for 6 months.
Yeah. So I was just like not really feeling it. I was like, man, that's not going to happen. And that thing happened. And I was like, oh my God, like he has so much history and so much past and so many things I didn't see about him. And he was kind of like hiding that I love to just explore that more and love it more and just be here to see it, to it's just a part of your journey. So we kind of were like, fuck, let's do it. This is exciting. And the funny thing is, and this is something that our spiritual coach helped us understand, that this was like a next level of self-love that helped us change slightly the vibration of the relationship.
Yeah.
So all the petty things that would annoy me, you taking my personal assistant after we broke up, da 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 da, and I was like so hurt by that.
Suddenly you weren't.
Yeah, all of a sudden I was just like, fuck it, like I don't
Doesn't
care.
matter.
Didn't matter. Like, and I was like, and then called Adriana, and I was like, Adriana, like I'm so upset about her, like my personal assistant going to work with Jacob now, and da da da, and this and that, and how all of these, and now like I don't give a shit. Like it doesn't matter. And she's like, well, once you like enter the next level,
Step into that new stage.
yeah,
new level.
like the petty stuff don't matter.
It becomes petty and pointless.
Yeah, and so that was really, really cool to all of a sudden see like it didn't matter anymore. And so many,
Well, I think, sorry to interrupt, I think it that
interrupt
petty thing,
away.
yeah? Because before it would have bothered
so
me.
hot, yeah.
I think, oh my God, I've lost my train of thought now. I've lost it now for a second.
No.
Go. I'll remember it again.
No, I guess it was just like I didn't understand the depth of the relationship that I can get to.
Yeah.
I've never experienced anything like that. And I've never experienced anyone being so bravely vulnerable about their story.
But it brings us together as a team, right? And I think that was the different thing that like really set, for me at least, after that, it was like, oh wow, like this is my person, and whatever we now come up against, it becomes our problem to deal with together, which I think prior to that had very much been this like, oh, if there's an issue, I'll figure it out or you'll figure it out. And I had put that onto us as well. Like, oh, if you have a problem, you
Yeah,
sort
you
it
do
out.
you, babe.
Yeah.
You
And I, that's kind of how I had brought myself to this relationship. And I think in this new relationship that we're in, it's a very different approach.
Yeah. And then, me being a tough Polish lady, I was like, yeah, I can figure myself out, but I felt really overwhelmed. So I think since that conversation, since deciding to go for Jaggie 2.0, it's really, I think it's nice to hear our friends say that they can really sense the difference.
Yeah.
And I think it's like a deeper level of respect, deeper level of responsibilities, but also it's understanding that you're not like, you are a man and I'm a woman, but we are human beings and we really just connect here.
We're embodying every aspect of being a human being, right?
Yeah, and in a way that's like I only realized like the price men pay for living a patriarchal masculine world is also very high. And if you don't have your shit together 24/7, you're not Grand Cordon who's flying a private jet and killing it and making millions and whatever, you're not a man.
Yeah.
And if you're crying, you're not a man. If you're not sleeping around and don't have a six-pack and I don't know, not polyamorous or didn't have 100 like female like girls, you're not a real man. There's this idea of like what a real man is. Like spiritual community has their own shadows of what that might mean, but that's basically the idea. If you're not ticking those boxes, all of a sudden, I don't know, God forbid your woman makes more money, and then she's masculine and you're feminine, like, or shit like that. Instead of just realizing the money comes to the relationship through either of us, depending on the season. And so we've
said that we spoke to this kind of like abundance that comes through both of us at different
but for
times.
the relationship, but not for the person.
Yeah.
So when we first started dating, I was struggling financially. I still remember right at the beginning of our dating, they closed my bank account when I was in Europe and I had no access to money for like 2 months, like zero. I would have to go back to America to get
That's what
this.
she told me. Okay.
Remember that?
No,
I was
yeah, no,
so
of course.
stressed. So basically, Chase, I didn't sign something against gambling. So they closed my account, put all the money that I had in a check and sent it to my apartment in LA. So I had no access to my money. And we just started dating. So I was like, oh my God, like I have to ask him, hey, can I have $100 so I can like just survive? And it was that. And then I started making money, and then you lost a lot of money in crypto. Then I lost money selling swimwear. And still, that business closed because, got scammed. And which happens, is beautiful, help me not get attached to financial outcomes. And then I wouldn't say you're struggling right now, but it's definitely like this, you invested a lot of money in your new business, Dreamland, because you wanted
a slower process, something that's going to take a lot longer to take off, and the jobs I'm doing in other parts require a lot of investment into getting them done. So it's like the return for me right now, it's like I get so much enjoyment for what I do, but it doesn't bring significant income.
Yeah, because obviously, basically, Jacob had this dream for his clothing brand, and he decided to do everything perfect, like the best quality. Like these t-shirts should be sold for like $200, $300, $400. He's selling them for $60, so he has no margin. I'm getting frustrated because I feel like you shouldn't be doing business like this because you're not getting any margins, and you're like da 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 da, right? So I'm stepping into my I'm trying not to give him advice, but I also feel like, I'd be like, no, don't do this. Like, so stressful. But you have to also go through that business, and you want to invest in that business, and you want to provide something that you're providing, right? And there was this idea of like, Dreamland needs time to grow, and I need to trust that you know how to run this business without me feeling like we need support.
Yeah, or that you need to be quote unquote involved in that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But then it's also for you to understand how to receive support from me during that time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's like, as we said, it comes through waves, and the season we're in now with business and everything, it's like I'm learning to be comfortable with the dynamic of, oh, cool, this is a season where Aggie's going to make a lot more money than I am, and to be comfortable that that's actually, okay, well, no, this is what we're earning together as a relationship and as a team, and not feel like, okay, my response to that is I have to find ways to earn as much or more than her and break my back over doing that and become miserable and put stress on us, instead of finding other ways to support the relationship and us and what you're doing and what I'm doing.
And I think it's like that, like the thing that I was most attracted to you originally is the fact that you're an artist, right? And artists inherently are connected with the feminine energy of the creation, right? Like the flow, the way that you see things that most people don't, is way more attractive to me than your ability to pay for a private jet and count numbers. Like it's not as exciting to me, but the way you look at the world, the way how hold your camera, the way how you create, right? And the vision that you have for things, like that is just like beautiful. But that is, in a way, a feminine quality. And I think what's really beautiful to see is that it's the contrast and the balance of feminine and masculine, which is you're hot, you strong, you always like lift heavy, and you always grab bags for me and whatnot, and you are very directional and you know exactly what you want to do, and yet you're very connected with that creative part of you, which is the two are just the most beautiful thing in the world. And I think it's really interesting how I haven't met a man yet who really fit that picture of the typical masculine energy and seemed attractive to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, finding a way to embody both in a way that's authentic to ourselves, right? And I think that reflects to you beautifully in a way that, like, your drive and ability to manage teams and build like incredible products and come up with incredible ideas also balances with the want for you to just like disconnect and relax and fall into your kind of more feminine role, so to speak, and finding space to do both. And I think that's what we've worked hard to get to a point where we can find an ebb and flow between the two for ourselves.
It's super beautiful. How did you like decide that it's the right time for us to transition into fiance and fiance?
Fiance and fiance. to engagement. I mean, I knew from 2017 that would one day be a scenario. But I think coming back together, I was kind of just like, why am I going to wait? I know this is right. Like, I know this is exactly.
People were like, well, you waited 6 years, but
yeah, no.
In the meantime, we're in different relationships. We're just friends. Then we kind of got to.
No, I'm saying, so after the relationship that we broke up in February and then getting back together, I'm like, okay, cool. We're getting back together. Like, I don't want to wait. Like, I want us to move forward and really tackle this in a new way, approach this in a brand new way. And I guess that for me, like, you know, we went traveling all through the summer and whatnot, but nowhere really excited me to propose. Like, propose in Italy, everyone goes to fucking Italy. Propose in Greece, everyone proposes. Like most people go, oh wow, it's such a unique place to propose. For me, it's like, oh well,
we've been there.
Not just we've even been there. It's like it's going to happen that evening, that same evening. We're going to be excited to talk about it and post about it. It's going to go on Instagram.
We're just like tell parents.
No,
I don't think we would post the same day, but yeah.
You know, it's going to be within a 48-hour period that we would probably do it and post and share. And the one place that I could think of where year on year we go with the intention of actually disconnecting and being present is Burning Man. It's a choice where I don't feel guilty to, you know, as we approach the gates of Burning Man, go airplane mode. Perfect. We're offline. I'm not coming back online until I come back out of this world. And I also knew that by doing it at Burning Man, we would be the most present we possibly can be in our calendar year without feeling guilty, which is very interesting in the work that we do, obviously, online and stuff, where this is often guilt for disconnecting. And I think we're getting better at that. But for me, Burning Man felt like the ultimate place, something that's very special to you and I, something that we've connected.
Most people can't go to because it's like quite...
Yeah,
not because they can't afford or anything.
No,
but
from an organization, from a planning, from a commitment to going. It's not like you're turning up at Coachella and like everything's sorted. It's like it requires infrastructure from yourself and everyone else going. And
that's what I mean. You don't need money, but you need effort and planning and like radical self-reliance.
And so part of that journey to get to the point of proposing to you at Burning Man was, of course, telling all of my closest people, asking your parents, which I wrote a little letter in Polish, asking your mom and your dad and your sister whether I could have your hand in marriage. And
what did they say? My mom said, show me their
amazing. No, they were both super excited. And then your mom was curious about the ring, of course, as my mom was. And then figuring out a way to propose to you in an authentic moment that felt right to us. And I had a few ideas of where that would be at Burning Man. Initially, it was skydiving.
And I got upset.
Yeah, as I've heard post-proposal, it's not uncommon for the woman to get frustrated and wanting to do something totally different than what the man has planned for a proposal. We heard it a few times from people that follow us.
Because he's like, we're going to go skydiving. I'm like, okay, but we should do it on our first day. And do you know what you want to wear? I'm like, I don't really care, but we're gonna jump here. And I'm like, after like 2 hours, I'm like, babe, I love you, but like it's all you can talk about. I'm like, I'm not going skydiving. You basically took away.
Part of my plan was to, you know, jump, land, as we land, propose. So obviously in my head, I'm like, all right, perfect. We're gonna figure out the skydiving. We've got to make sure it's right. We're gonna do this. There's a bunch of sequences that we have to do at Burning Man in order to be able to skydive. We've got to tick these boxes. From your perspective, you're like, all he cares about is fucking skydiving. Yeah. I'm so over this. This is boring. I'm at Burning Man. I don't want to think about this.
Yeah.
So like I pivoted pretty quickly actually into like, okay, we always go out and take photos. But this was my plan B all along. And you can ask family actually. They were like, what's your plan B? I was like, okay, I'd have a plan B. And plan B turned into plan A.
Very quickly.
And, you know, we've typically taken photos when we go out on the playa for just one evening. We love it. We get sunset. We get creative and fun. And this time, you know, Aggie's got this marvelous outfit, just looking absolutely incredible, and like perfect queen energy that we're going into this moment with. So I'm like, just before we're leaving, like kind of looking for the ring, grab it out my bag, stuff it in my pocket, and then we go out to the playa and I'm
in my silly mood.
You're in your silly mood, playing around, talking too much. The sun's going down. I'm like trying to get a shot. It's not really working. And then at this point, I was just in my head. I was like, fuck it. We're going to get a shot. It's going to be what it is.
Like, you're like, we're not taking any photos.
Weirdly enough, I care more about this moment being good for you and I. Like, it's like I just wanted. I'm a photographer. Like, I care about how things look, and I care about all of that. So it was a big deal for me, and I knew it would be a big deal for you, for us to have this beautiful moment. Obviously, you had no idea though. So at some point, I was kind of like, all right, fuck it. It's gonna be what it's gonna be. Hit record. Pretend we're getting a nice video, and our moment happened. And I don't think there could have been a better moment for that to have happened. Like, in our entire relationship, it just worked. From that point, throughout that night and the rest of the Burning Man, it was just like perfect.
Yes. Mine is the 30 seconds in our friends like, yo, you guys want any photos? And we're like,
no, but even
yeah,
so,
it's perfect.
Perfect. You have to look at that moment as there are 75,000 people at Burning Man, and within the 30-second period, deep in the middle of the playa that I was proposing to you, one of our friends came past at that moment. Like, the chances are wild, and it created for a really funny moment for us, which we'll remember forever, obviously, alongside the fact we were getting engaged.
Yeah, but because for me, I was like, I wasn't sure if she's in, and she's just arriving to take a photo. So I'm like,
wrong
hi.
Why are you here?
I know, because I'm like, hi. And then she's like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, wait, maybe she doesn't see that we're both on our knees.
I have a ring in my hand.
Yeah. So she didn't see. And so I was like, does she get it? Does she not get it? Does she know what you're doing? You know, I didn't know.
Yeah. And then the moment I think she clocked on and was like, oh, shit, this is happening. It was very much like, I should leave. Like, bad timing, but beautiful. Anyway, I think
it's funny.
We found a way to, like, that whole night just became this beautiful collection of connecting with friends. And to kind of close out that point was an amazing way for us to revel in this moment of our love and celebrate that so presently.
Yeah. I personally don't think I ever plan on sharing about my engagement right away. Like, that was my intention. But being on my phone, like, there's so many messages every single day. It's like at least 200 messages on WhatsApp, so many emails. Your focus is pulled into a million directions, into other people's agenda constantly. And you don't see until you turn your phone off. And you're like, oh, is that what presence feels like?
And I think when I say share, more like, you'd want to call your mum, as I would want to call mine. Like, we want to call family, tell friends, like, do all of this stuff, be on our phones to do it. And that pulls you away from the here and now. And I remember there was a point that night when I looked and I was like, we literally have nowhere to go and, like, nowhere to be.
Yeah.
Like, we are literally here, and this is exactly where we're meant to be. And it's such a rare moment and a rare feeling.
Yeah. And then we went to a temple. We put a little intention, you know, had a little cry, and just felt so good to be setting intention for that period of our life, to not just like rush anywhere, and basically decide to ride a bike, meet our friends at, you know, just hoping that we're going to run into them. We go to this party, and who do we see? Your ex-girlfriend. Most people would be like, are you kidding me? We just got like engaged. We go to a party and we run into a girlfriend you haven't seen in a few years.
Yeah, 2, 3, 2019, yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy, 4 years.
So we basically like talk about timing, but it was actually super healing because she was super sweet. We had a hug. Like, she was like, oh, I always knew you guys were meant for each other.
It was such a beautiful moment. Like, it solidified even more for us how right this.
Yeah, she gave us like a Zoe, we love you. Thank you so much, because that was really special to have you there, and actually just like getting that blessing from the past into the future was like really special. Like, maybe my old ego Aggie would be like, I cannot believe she's here. She should leave. And why is she coming up to us? But she was like,
we both embraced it in such a beautiful way, and it was such a beautiful from her as well to be able to express that.
Yeah, she's super emotionally mature, and it probably was the highlight of and to see her there.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah,
but it continued that evening with this. You know, you're moving my speaker, your stretches, with my microphone. Like this connection with friend after friend and celebration.
Yeah, and it was great that we didn't call our parents. I was like so old school to wait 5 or 6 days.
And I had warned everyone that throughout the week it would most likely be Thursday or Friday. Turned out to be Wednesday, so a little bit sooner. But like, I know that they were kind of like, okay, at least we can think about it on that day that they're probably engaged. And blah, blah. I know my mum and Molly and Alice were like, okay, we're just going to be thinking good vibes that day. We're going to be celebrating in our head. And then,
so sweet.
Yeah, they were wanting to just like revel in that moment with us, even though they couldn't, hear it from us until we were able to call in those moments of being able to tell everyone.
Madman.
Yeah.
That was super cool. I'm just trying to think what would be like a one takeaway that I think for me, just even from this whole experience, from being in a most beautiful connection originally. We met each other in 2017. I was like, he's my person. We just get each other. Like my best friend. I just want to see him happy. I had this impression that the relationship that you were in wasn't meeting you and seeing you for who you were as a pure soulmate. I'm like, you're not feeling honored, and it doesn't honor you. And I think there was a level of you feeling the same way. But we basically went our own ways, did our own thing. Like a year later, I went through a breakup. You were going through a really tough relationship of your life. So it's kind of like we called it, even though it didn't seem like it would be the reality a year prior. But within that year, everything just started falling apart for both of us. And then 2019, you broke up with your long-term girlfriend. I just got into a new relationship. So this was this moment of like, hey, like, what's between us? I'm like, I don't know. I have a new boyfriend. I'm totally fine. So whatever. And then you got your girlfriend. And then we both went to Burning Man in 2019 with our partners. We somehow ended up running into one another, and you basically multiple times. And I remember this one night that you just kind of felt like, I feel like I have like feelings for you that are very present. And I'm like, well, too bad, too late. I'm in a relationship. I'm happy. Just kind of leave me alone.
His eyes said a different story.
Maybe. But like my words were like, I'm committed. I'm not interested. Please just give me space. And then fast forward to another year, I was broken up with that boyfriend. That was just like a very short relationship for you as well. But it was 2020, and you wrote a chapter of my book, and basically we were both single. And it was right before the pandemic. It was like February. My book, I launched a travel book 3 weeks before the pandemic happened. And
iconic.
Yeah. Where to travel? Like right
nowhere.
And so I remember you wrote a chapter, and I wanted to give you a copy, and we met at a bar, and we had like a cool vibe back then. I was like, oh, he's kind of hot. And he's like, I'm like, maybe we can just see where this goes. This feels really nice. And you said, I'll be back in 2 weeks.
What, 5 weeks? Because my ankle was broken and I had to leave.
Yeah, but you said I'll be back in...
I'm back in 5 weeks. I'm going to be back, and we're making this.
Yeah, he's like, I'll be back on March 10th. Yeah. And I'm like, great. I'm coming back from South Africa that day to just see what it goes. And obviously
COVID,
pandemic.
boom.
Yeah.
That was that. And sorry, where were you going with this question, with the takeaway?
No, but like, I'm just like painting a picture of like the ups and downs, It felt like was always the wrong timing.
Yeah.
I was single, you were not single. No.
We get together, and I think there was still an expectation of what we thought it was going to be in 2017, and didn't really allow that to...
No, I mean, 2020 was great.
2020 was great, and then I think throughout the time beyond that,
yeah, because it's like...
and 20, like,
I guess it's like the relationship is evolving, and I wasn't really trying to recreate 2017 or 18. I just was like holding on to this idea of who we used to be.
Yeah.
But we went on this like massive spiritual, like...
So different to who we were 6 months prior and 6 months prior before that. And we didn't allow ourselves to reset every few months to the people we were in those moments, right?
Yeah.
So we were living in the past.
Yeah. And so that led us to then basically arriving at a place in our relationship that wasn't, we were never really bad. Like when I think of like, oh, unhappy, like it's not like I was ever like unhappy or that we were like
it
not
wasn't
fighting.
what it should be.
It didn't feel like a full wow, fuck yes, this is incredible.
And yet
it was complacent.
We knew this was each other's persons.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel like what we knew it should feel like.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. And then, we shared in the previous podcast, you can listen to the backstory of what it really was. Broke up, best decision ever. And I think getting back together was obviously really scary and vulnerable, but like in that last 3 months was really beautiful to just get to this place and, you know,
Truly feel like a fucking team.
yeah, it feels really great. And the thing that we kind of like believe in is that it's always us against the problem, whatever, never at.
We're not going against one another. Together we're a team. The problem we'll fix. Regardless of whether it came as my problem or your problem, we will solve it together.
Yeah, and I think in the past we tend to blame each other for something. I was like, oh babe, like you didn't lock the bikes and they got stolen. Why did you not lock the bikes? So I would go after Jacob, and now it's kind of like, all right, whoever's fault that was, we have no bikes. The problem is the bikes. What do we do? Instead of like wasting the energy to like blame somebody.
Which is such a huge, very simple but wildly effective tool.
Yeah.
Like honestly, like I think it's been one of the biggest revelations for us to just like feel so connected to one another that it's us against the problem.
Yeah. I love that.
Nice ring.
That's right, I know. Super in love. It was really cool because I never thought.
Oh yeah, you never thought I would get you a nice ring.
That's true. Because we never talked about it. I didn't want to be like.
We didn't have a single conversation about what a good engagement ring.
And the only rings that I have are from my friend Logan, and they're definitely don't look anything like that. They're way more spiritual and like quotes and like, you know, snakes and stuff, and they're gold. So we never had that conversation. I genuinely don't really like engagement rings, but I'm like, fuck it, it's gonna be a year. I can get to not wear it and whatever. I'll just tell them that I go to the gym and I take it off or whatever, like traveling. And then when I first saw it, I was like, wow, so beautiful. It's so me, and you do it so well. Thank you. No, I truly, it feels really, really light, and I feel like
it was meant to be on that finger all along.
That's right. All right, exciting. And I guess now the plan is planning an engagement party really quick before traveling, and
a wedding.
So
Soon.
Very open to any suggestions. And
wedding planners, let us know.
That's it. And
thanks for having me on the podcast.
Thank you for coming.
I appreciate being here.
I hear some great things happening for you soon. Do you want to talk about your business ventures?
I mean, we're going to be...
Surprise. There's always a surprise at the end. For those who stay, there's always that
little bit of juice, some nectar for everyone. So obviously we've been Aggie's been exploring the supplement world for a long time. And we think there's an opportunity to look at how to support men in their supplement journey on a fitness level as well, and to be able to launch a product or multiple products that are going to be able to help guys like myself who are on the move, who work for themselves, that are kind of not necessarily always in the same place at the same time, and need that kind of guidance and support of what supplements to take and schedules to be on, to be able to support them through a new product that we're launching, if I can share the name or not.
Definitely can.
Biohacking Bro. It's coming. You guys have wanted it subconsciously but didn't know it. So it's coming. We're very excited. Lots of work to be done on that. So look out for that very soon.
And you heard it first. You see, it pays off to listen to the podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you on the next episode. Love you.